Oh, hello. Can we please talk about the fights going down on New Year's Eve? We've got some cage fighting, some fist fights happening. New Year's Eve, Cage Warriors 148. There's some interesting fights I'm going to be breaking down. I like to do some research into the fighters. Then I like to put some bets down. The bets are usually terrible, but the research is the research. You can feel free to make your own picks. There's some great fights. You've got the flyweight title fight, Sam Creasy defending his title. The main ones I'm interested in is that one, Modestas Bukauskas against Chuck Campbell for the vacant light heavyweight title, and the main event, the middleweight title, Christian Duncan defending against Jesse Taylor. That's a very interesting fight, actually. Some very interesting betting lines on that one, and I'm going to be getting into them. So yeah, stick around for the breakdown of Cage Warriors 148. So I'm starting off in the flyweight division, in the flyweight title fight, Sam Creasy against Shahzadul Haq. And this one's actually a very interesting fight because, tell the tape, they're both very similar, to be fair. Reach is very similar, and they've got a kind of similar fighting style. Well, a similar, striking style at the very least. So anyway, Sam Creasy, he has been around in MMA on the regional scene for a very long time. 2009, this lad made his debut. He's very good. He's got a very interesting skill set. He's got about an inch in height over Haq and a very, very slight reach advantage as well. This could be helpful to him. Sam, he's got great submissions, really top level submissions, particularly the high arm guillotine, which is something that he does look for quite a lot. And he actually got it in his last fight against Bretchik, and he got, Luke Shanks with it as well. And, I rate that, and Luke's submission defense is actually very good. So the fact he got Luke with that was quite impressive, actually. You've seen Luke in some really difficult positions before and getting out of them. He's got a real knack for doing it. Not on that occasion though. He's usually quite measured on the feet, Sam Creasy. He covers distance very well. He uses the low calf kick. That's a very useful weapon of his. And he uses like the front teep kicks to kind of keep the range. His lateral movement is pretty good. Although he usually goes from side to side, then when he's actually engaging, he'll go in and then straight back out, and then straight back again. Kind of tends to hop in and out. But he does do it, but that allows him to land stepping right hook, which is something that he does really, really well. His stepping right hook over the top against Amarasinghe was a very good example of that. Floored him with that really nicely. Now, Sammy usually engages in the striking to create scrambles, and it's when he's on the ground that he usually has quite a big advantage, and he usually goes for the neck. As we well know, 90% of submissions are on the neck, so you've got to go for those high percentage submissions, and Sam Creasy does that as well as anybody in the UK scene right now. Now, his opponent, Haq, is very light on his feet. He's got an unusual movement. To be fair, he's kind of hard to read. He's almost like, when I was watching his fights, he kind of does an almost little kind of dance two-step type thing. Similar when you watch Dominic Cruz, the way he moves around, it's very difficult to read. It's like side to side, but it's very rarely in the same direction twice. He doesn't really repeat the patterns, and he rarely goes straight backwards and straight forward, and he switches stances quite a lot. He's very, very difficult to read on the feet. This could present some issues for Sam Creasy here. He's got good punching power. He kind of whips the punches as well. And because he kind of like whips him, he tends to go into the combos, and he covers some good range, particularly the left hand. It tends to be a weapon that he throws rather a lot. Very good checks on his kicks, so Sam Creasy is going to have to watch throwing that low calf kick without any kind of setup, because he does check the leg kicks very good. If you watch his fight against Verdine, he actually hurt Verdine with a checked low kick, and it's because he's just very, very aware of where the kick's coming from. And again, it's difficult to read where he's going to be. His positional awareness is excellent. His ground transitions are actually very quick, and he mixes in the takedowns fairly well. He will shoot in after landing a combo just to mix things up. So in summary, I think that this one is going to be interesting to see who takes the centre of the ring, because both men prefer to strike from around the outside and kind of move around side to side and pick off from range. Obviously, they can't both do that at the same time. One of them is going to have to be in the centre of the octagon. It will be interesting to see which one that will be. I would say that the footwork on the feet is in favour of Haq. He's more unorthodox. He's going to be kind of difficult to deal with, especially for, you know, for a more kind of standard striking style, which I'm not saying is a bad thing by any means, but it's going to be very difficult to read. And Sam Creasy's advantages don't lie on the feet in this fight. I feel like it lies on the ground. Now, Creasy is, obviously he's going to be standing, with all fights start on the feet. Creasy is more than capable of standing to create those scrambles. I would say I wouldn't expect to see too many takedown attempts from Hack. Whilst Hack does like to mix in the takedowns, he must be aware of how good Sam Creasy is at snatching up that neck. If you leave that head anywhere in the wrong position, then it's going to be a real problem. So, for me, this is a great matchup. Absolutely fantastic matchup. I'm a fan of both of these guys, if I'm totally honest. Now, I think that on the feet, they might cancel each other out a little bit. They're both going to be looking to stay on the outside. They can't both do that. And so, I think that this one could go to the ground. And Creasy, to get the submission, any time it goes to the ground, Creasy getting the submission is a good bet. I'm a fan of both guys, but my pick is going to be Sam Creasy by submission. The odds aren't up for the actual individual submission yet. I think he's 1.80, the slight favourite when you're looking at just the match betting. But yeah, I quite like Sam Creasy in this one. But again, I would stipulate both of these guys are extremely good, and the odds reflect that. It's extremely close on the betting lines, as it should be, because that should be a really entertaining fight. Looking forward to it. So this next one, you've got Modestas Bukauskas. You might remember him from the UFC, taking on Chuck Campbell, rising, aka American Kickboxing Academy prospect. This one is for the vacant light heavyweight title, and this breakdown is going to be exclusively over on my Patreon. So if you would like to see this breakdown, please can you go over to the Burt Locker on Patreon now. Thank you. I'm going to move on to the main event. You've got Christian Duncan, 7-0, defending his middleweight Cage Warriors title against Jesse Taylor, 33-16. Now, if you're wondering why Jesse Taylor looks familiar to you, I'll tell you why. He was on the Ultimate Fighter, Griffin versus Rampage, and he was the one that he got through to the final, but he got hammered on the night of the final, I think it was, or a few days before, or something like that. But he got absolutely shit-faced drunk. Like, got really aggressive with all the hotel staff, kicked in a limo window, and Dana White was like, "Look, we ain't having that. Sorry, you're done. You're out." He then got his shit together and he came back, and he was on the redemption season of the Ultimate Fighter where he submitted Diego Lima. And if you remember that one, yeah, he's just a very good wrestler. He got the submission over Diego Lima, but then he failed a drug test and was removed from the UFC. Okay, so he's still fighting. He's a little bit older. He's relatively active. He fights about once a year. His main weapon is his grappling, his wrestling. He is an NCAA Division I wrestler. He is so strong, ridiculously strong. Is he on the special sauce still? Who knows? Either way, he is strong as fuck. And he's a relentless wrestler. He is relentless with it as well. He will just shoot in for those takedowns. There's no secret to what he's going to try and do here. He is going to shoot in for a takedown, and if he gets you on the floor, he's going to maul you. He's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He goes for the high percentage submissions, rear naked chokes all the way. He's coming off 2 rear naked chokes in a row against another former UFC guy in Seth Brzezinski. So look, this is a very tough test for Christian Duncan. It really is, because Christian Duncan, he's very good. I love watching the guy, right? He's 27 years old. He's taller by an inch. So the age could be significant here, because one of the things that I think Taylor's got going against him is he is 39 now. But that doesn't seem, the age thing doesn't seem to affect wrestlers nearly as much as it does strikers, because like the power and the technique of that wrestling is just not going to go anywhere. He's still going to be able to shoot that takedown, and if he gets on top of you, he's still going to use his strength. His strength isn't going anywhere at 40 years old. I would say this. It's the reactions and the speed that go first. That's why the lighter weight classes tend to retire earlier. But Jesse Taylor's probably not going to run into that problem, at least not at this stage. Jesse Duncan, he's trained by Mark Weir as well, who's one of the first English guys to fight in the UFC. I thought that was worth noting anyway. And he's very quick in and out. He doesn't bounce per se, but he does switch stances very well. And often when he switches stances, he tends to hit the low calf kind of straight away. That's something that I just noticed that he does in the fight. He's only had 7 fights, 7-0, unbeaten. But in the fights I've watched him in, he does tend to switch stances and throw the low kick. It's a very good technique for him. However, I would say that against a wrestler as good as Jesse Taylor, watch where you're throwing those kicks, because you could leave yourself open to a double leg there very, very easily. Now, he likes the short left hook as well, just over the gloves. What he tends to do is he does the range finding thing. He has been warned for having his fingers out on several occasions. I did notice that as well. But like, what he tends to do is like bat the glove down and come back over with the short hook. So he moves the guard out of the way, but then comes back over with the short. And that's a good technique because you can generate quite a lot of power just by doing that. If that stuns his opponent, he can then move in and start picking them off. He tends to go for like the high reward, low percentage moves. The spinning like roundhouse, the spinning elbows, which have worked for him so far, because versus Dimitrov, right, he did throw a lot of those techniques and he ended up finishing it with this, off of the back of a spinning elbow, let's say. But I would just like to note that Dimitrov is not a D1 NCAA wrestler. He's certainly not a relentless wrestling kind of game planner that Taylor is. So it's going to be interesting to see if we're going to see a slightly more measured Christian Duncan in this one, because you throw those spinning attacks against Taylor and he grabs hold of you and takes you back, you're in trouble. You're in real trouble. So you've got to be careful with that. So in summary, this is a classic striker versus wrestler here. For me, Duncan looks terrifying on the feet. Absolutely terrifying. But he's always been fairly comfortable. He's able to stop takedowns from a lot of these guys on the European scene, but he hasn't faced a relentless wrestler to the caliber of Jesse Taylor up to this point. Taylor is going to rush across that octagon and he is going to shoot. And he is going to shoot and shoot and shoot again. If he doesn't get the first one, he's going to try again. You're going to have to get that respect early, right? Don't be surprised to see Duncan throwing a knee up the middle to try and kind of even up that difference. Because the high-level wrestlers, like Jesse Taylor, will just grind the life out of you. I think he trains at Team Quest as well. So let me just double check that. I want to see if I'm misremembering. He's trains at Team Quest, which is obviously Dan Henderson's gym. He, like a lot of wrestlers there. His wrestling is so good. Black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well, Jesse Taylor. Like a D1 national wrestler with a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is never not going to be a problem. I don't think that sounded quite right, but you get what I'm saying, you know? So for me, look, Taylor, like Duncan, he's going to have to fight slightly differently to how we've seen him fight before. I do feel like that. He's going to have to use less of the high reward, low percentage shots. He's going to have to stick to the basics, to the fundamentals, so that he can keep his guard against the takedown tighter, because he really doesn't want to leave himself vulnerable to that double leg. Taylor, like I said, he's 39, but I don't think that really affects wrestlers in the same way it does strikers. And for me, one thing I would note, he did fail the doping test at USADA. And I want to know, right, he hasn't really fought in any organisation since then where USADA have had a presence. Obviously, there's anti-doping in every organisation, but it's nowhere near the level of USADA. You've got to think, is he possibly still on that special sauce? There's a good chance. Like if he got popped for something, like because the drug testing in the regional seeds, like in Cage Warriors, like over here, it is nowhere near as stringent. We all know that some of these guys are on the sauce. And I'm not mentioning any names, but we know some of these guys are juicing, because look, the USADA testing pool is just not available here. So, you know, Jesse Taylor's not going to be having to worry too much about some of those tests. So is he going to be still on something? That's going to equal a lot of strength. And that strength is going to be a problem if he gets a hold of Duncan. If this stays on the feet, Duncan is going to pick him apart. But I'm not sure that it's going to, right? I look at how they both fight, and I can see Taylor getting the takedown fairly early. Duncan needs to stop that at all costs. And 100% he does. He definitely needs to kind of think about not throwing those spinning back elbows and things like that, because if he gives up his back to Taylor, like literally if he throws that spinning back elbow but doesn't throw it exactly right and Taylor just rushes in, gets the takedown from the back, he's going to get that rear naked choke so fast it's going to make your head spin. And Taylor is 4-1 against in this fight, which is goddamn criminal. So I'm going to take Taylor on this one. I think stylistically, this is a hard matchup for Duncan. Stylistically, this is probably the toughest matchup that he's come across, because so far he's unbeaten, but he's more or less been allowed to strike for most of the time, because even when people have shot him for takedowns, they've not been particularly good ones because they're not the kind of level of wrestler it takes. But this guy, like Jesse Taylor, he is extremely good wrestler. So we're going to find out just how good Duncan's takedown defense is. And he's only 7 fights in. That's the other thing that concerns me. Look at the experience that Jesse Taylor's got. He's 33-16. He has seen it all. He's had, do you know what I mean? He's had almost 50 fights. It's ridiculous. So, I don't know. I think this is a bad matchup for Duncan. You're getting great odds on Taylor as an underdog. That for me is worth a go. I'm interested. I am fired up for this fight. I cannot wait to see it. I'll be doing. We'll see how these bets all came off next week when I do my normal recap show. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the fights, because they're on in the UK at a normal time. I'm going to be watching them because, you know, what else am I going to do on New Year's Eve than have a few beers with my mates and watch some great fights. Wish you a happy New Year. Hope everything goes well. Hope you have a great night if you're going out. And until next time, keep those odds long and those bets terrible.